Welcome to the Fill Your Cups podcast. We're your hosts, Morgan
and Shelby.
Hello, everybody. So we have another guest on this week, our friend Shelby.
Hello.
Bailey and I are really good friends with Shelby. Bailey grew up with her, and you're in book club with us.
Yes.
We're friends. We all ask you questions about our dogs and about all sorts of random things. But Shelby is here today because I've been wanting to talk a little bit about this subject for a while. So I'm really excited about it. It's a little bit of a deeper subject, talking about grief. So we'll get into that in a minute. If you've been listening to the last few episodes, you know Bailey's on podcast maternity leave. So that's why Shelby's here with me today and Bailey's not. But before we get into the episode, I always ask what's filling your cup, but you might need me to say.
No, my nephew was born on Tuesday. Literally filling my cup is the mulled wine.
I love that.
Not hypothetically.
It would be
metaphorically filling my cup.
Yeah,
metaphorically filling my cup is now my nephew. I'm used to your Instagram
No,
stories.
I love that so much. Yeah, Shelby's really good about, so if you guys follow us on Instagram, it's at Fill Your Cups Podcast. And Shelby's really good about, on Fridays, we do a Fill Your Cups Friday post on our stories. And Shelby's really good about being like, my nephew was born or whatever.
I'm actually really bad at it because I couldn't figure out how to... I was tapping it yesterday and it kept going to the next post and I had to be like, Morgan, how do I fill it out?
How do I do this?
I felt 85 years old. It was very embarrassing.
Social media is hard.
Yeah.
But yeah, but what is filling our actual literal cups is I made a mocktail mulled wine. It's really just mulled grape juice with all the fixings that mulled wine has, like orange slices, lemon slices, cinnamon, cloves, cranberries, all that stuff. So that's what's filling our cups. And then for our shout out today, Shelby has a shout out.
Yes, on the way here, I was re-listening to my favorite episode of All There Is, which is a podcast by Anderson Cooper. And he started it, I think it was in 2019 when he was cleaning out his mom's apartment after she passed. And every episode is just like one of his friends or like a celebrity talking about grief. And I was re-listening to the episode with Stephen Colbert.
Oh,
which I listened to it for the first time when I was in like very, very early grief. And it like fully changed my life, and my outlook on life. Like my Instagram bio is trying to be the most human I can be. That's a Stephen Colbert quote from that episode.
I love that. I didn't know that.
And there's the episode with Andrew Garfield is also fantastic.
Oh, cool.
They are so good.
All right.
Fantastic podcast.
That's so cool. I had never heard of this until Shelby was just telling me about it. But shout out Anderson Cooper. Yeah. And if this is a topic that is really interesting to you, then maybe that's something that you can go follow up after this episode on, is if you're interested in listening to more about grief at the end of this episode, by the end of this episode, then maybe that's an option. I'll link him I'll link his podcast in the show notes too. Yeah. So that anybody can find it pretty easily if they want to. You said it's called All There Is. All There Is. Okay, cool. Well, usually before we dive in, we talk a little bit about how we thought of this episode and why we came to it. And if you've listened to the podcast before, you may have heard us talk very briefly. We kind of skate over it sometimes, but Bailey and I both lost our only brother, but he was the oldest child in the family a few years back. And obviously it's like shaped our lives a lot too since then, just kind of shaped our mindsets and perspectives and all that. And it's I feel like the first person that you lose like that in your life is very almost foundational, I guess. Like we were adults at the time, but it's a very kind of groundbreaking moment in your life. So it's top of mind all the time, even years later. And if you've lost someone really close to you, then you probably know what I'm talking about. But it's top of mind even when it's not top of mind for other people, you know? So for me, I'm always like, when Bailey and I pick episodes, we have the let's get deep, how-tos, and bit of fun. Bailey always picks the bit of funs, and I always pick the let's get deeps because I'm like, let's get into it. Like, let's get emotional, you know? And so while Bailey's out, I'm like, let's talk about grief because it's something that's a little bit more uncomfy, but everybody goes through it at some point, and everybody has someone else in their life that is going through it or will go through it or has gone through it.
And I think it was pretty like close after I joined book club when I was like, if you ever want to do a podcast episode about grief, like, hi, I'm your girl. Like, I have a blog about it. Like,
yes,
I will talk about it forever for hours. Like, that's me.
Yeah. And that's why Shelby came to mind, because you have a blog on Substack.
Yes.
Just based off like your own experiences and what you've learned through it and everything. And so that's why it seemed like a natural option to have you come on.
Yeah. So in 2023, I moved back. I was living in Manhattan, Kansas. I went to college at K-State, and then I stayed in Manhattan for a couple of years after. I moved back to Kansas City because my grandma was on hospice, and that had been a thing for a while. It was just like kind of time for me to move back. My nieces were getting older and stuff. And I started a new job at KU, and then on my 4th day of work, I was out. Yeah, it was bad. I was out at like a company lunch, and I saw my dad was calling me, and it was during lunchtime, and my dad's a lunch lady. And I was like, oh no. And like, we had saw her on Sunday, and she was like not aware of anything. So like, I kind of knew this was going to happen. Like, my first day, I had to tell my boss, hey, I might have to leave.
Yeah.
Like, very soon.
Might be on bereavement.
Yeah. So, and of course we were at another site. We were at the site that Lindsay works at, actually.
Oh,
so I had to have one of my brand new coworkers drive me back to where I work. And then I had to leave. So that was May 18th. And then when I was gone that Friday, it was a Thursday, I was gone Friday on bereavement. And on Monday, when I was leaving work, my mom texted me that my Uncle Stinky is what I call him, and like what our whole family calls him, was what they thought he was having a heart attack. And then 3 months to the date that my grandma died, he died as well. He ended up having a slew of issues. He was kind of a medical mystery for a while, but he had a form of blood cancer in the end.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes.
This is so not related, but I read a book about someone with blood cancer. It was really tragic and upsetting.
Yeah, it like destroys your body with like no signs.
Yeah, it can go symptom free for so long. The only reason, or the only way that you can discover, like get lucky enough to discover that you have it before the symptoms show, is like by someone else in your family having it. Yes. Right. And then getting tested.
Yeah. He is not related to me by blood. So it was not a concern for us, but it was a concern for like his sister and stuff. When they were still trying to like figure out what was wrong, they were like, we might have to like bring you into this and stuff. But yeah, like the weekend before he went into the hospital, he was building a fence and like putting in concrete on the posts and fully healthy. Like, he was the healthiest person in our family. And then that next week he was in the ICU, and I think it was like the week later he was on a ventilator, and I never heard him speak again. Like, and in between, so it was like 3 months to the day. It was May 18th, grandma died. August 18th, Uncle Stinky died. And in between those, in July, I think, I had another aunt pass away too. Like, we hadn't heard from her, went to her house, and she had passed away.
Jeez.
And that was like very unexpected too. So it was a rough summer. And then most recently, my grandpa passed this past summer at the end of the summer. So lots of grief. I had no experiences with it prior to the 2023, this all happening. But now I feel like an expert. I'm obviously not, but I feel like one now.
Yeah, but also, I mean, you have reflected on it enough. Sometimes I feel like, I think on one of the episodes I was talking about, one of my favorite podcasters always says that we learn from reflecting on our past. We don't learn from our past.
Yes.
We learn from reflecting on it. So it's like, you don't just learn how to deal with grief or anything like that by just like having an experience that made you grieve and then moving right past it, like you've spent a lot of time reflecting on it and figuring out and listening to podcasts on it and writing about it and expressing your feelings about it, So I feel like I feel like that's a form of an expert, you know?
I think, and you kind of said it's top of mind even when it's not recent anymore. I think my Substack is called Grieving Your 20s because I found what was so like interesting is when your first close experience with profound grief is in your 20s. It's such a weird experience because that's when you're first really learning that like you're having life experiences that prove that like you're not invincible and you're like facing mortality for the first time.
Yeah.
And you're also like going through these big life changes of post grad and figuring out like, oh, I'm now having to be like an adult and having that big life change at the same time of like losing foundational members of your life is such a confusing time for not only the person grieving, but like the people around you. Like,
yeah, especially if they haven't experienced something
yes,
like
it's
that.
like so impossible to know how to be there for somebody. If like I still panic when somebody around me loses someone because it still feels like I don't know how to help someone because it's not spoken about. Like you experience a loss, you go on bereavement, and for most people that's like 3 days. Like you're gone for work. If you're lucky, you can take like a longer leave with FMLA, but you're back and then you're expected to be completely normal.
Yeah.
In most cultures and religions in America, it's you're back and you're like totally back to normal and you're supposed to move on. And I think it's so interesting in other practices and in different countries, like people will be in public mourning for a year.
Right. Yeah.
Or like you'll have a full 7-day mourning period. I think Jewish people have like Shiva or no, what is it?
Is that right?
There's a movie about it.
Yeah, I know. Jared and I watched it. Yeah.
Shiva.
Yes. That sounds right. Yeah.
And it's like a 7-day mourning period. Like
they're like with their family that whole time. Like, yeah.
And like, I can't imagine how different my grieving process would have been if I even just had that. Like, because I was back to work less than a week after he passed. Like,
there's not a lot of, I won't say respect necessarily, but that ultimately is kind of what I think. Like when I think about America's view on grief, there's not a lot of respect or appreciation around it. It's very, it feels very taboo, so we don't talk about it kind of thing. And that when you're saying like, oh, when someone loses someone, I still panic and don't know what to do. Bailey and I did do an episode way early on in the podcast, just specifically for us, it was like the do's and don'ts of reaching out to grieving loved ones. And for us, it was specifically from our point of view of like, these were the things that helped and these were the things that didn't help or probably wouldn't have helped if people did them, like classic things that people do, like bringing over massive amounts of food or something. And then it's like, oh, we're actually picky eaters and we don't do that, you know? So, and now I feel guilty because I'm throwing out your food, but on top of that, I'm also grieving. So now I feel grief and guilt.
Yeah.
And so just like, we kind of talked about that in that episode. But then also we talked a little bit about this kind of culture difference when we were reading The Measure. I don't know if you remember that in book club. And because that book was all about, the whole plot of the book was all about like kind of the considerations you make when you're faced with your own mortality. That was really it. And so we talked a lot. I feel like we got really into it about different cultures and how America is just, we kind of do our citizens dirty a little bit with like not really offering that time or even that like acknowledgement. Like it's very little, like it's not acknowledged very much either.
Yeah.
And that's something that I find whenever I was at a coworker happy hour a couple weeks ago and I was talking about, and I was like, oh yeah, we have some new people on our team. And I was like, oh yeah, I have 5 siblings, 4 sisters, 1 brother, but he died. And I'm pretty, I don't know, like one of my coworkers said, Morgan, it's terrible, but it like cracks me up every time that you just are like, yeah, my dead brother. And I'm like, I don't know, what else do I say? Like, it's weird to say, especially because in this context, I was talking about him being gay, and I was like, yeah, my brother was gay. And then I feel like I need to say he's dead because I'm not saying he was gay and now he's straight. So it's a particular instance, but anyway, it's just like, it just shows me the uncomfortability that people have with even speaking about it, because I can say it. Yes, there's a lot of hurt and emotion that goes behind having a dead brother. But at the same time, like, I feel like we should be able to say that in conversation without it being really like everybody's looking at each other and like, oh my God, should we acknowledge this? Should I say sorry? Should I, like, what should I do?
Yes.
And so I don't know. It's just really interesting, especially when talking with you or like other people that have faced a very close loved one passing. It's something that is kind of refreshing that we can just like say that, you know?
It's it's like Julia at Shaylin's baby shower.
Oh God.
A couple months ago, she came up to me and she's like, how's your grandpa doing? I'm like, oh, dead. Like,
oh my God.
Very dead. She's I don't even know why I asked that. I knew he was on her hospice.
Oh God.
She was like, I am so grateful that you were the one I asked that to. And it was because I immediately was like nearly in tears laughing. I was like, I love when I get to do that to people.
Oh my God.
Because it's just like it doesn't bother me at all, but I know the person I'm saying it to is going to like die inside.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Yeah. You kind of have a sick sense of humor though.
Yeah.
So that's why this episode suits you well.
Yeah. I think when it was kind of interesting going through, like, when I started a new job and was like immediately in a grieving process, and they immediately were seeing me in like the worst time of my life. Like, I came to work, or I was so grateful and so lucky that I worked at the hospital Uncle Siki was in. And so I would come to work early and go up to his ICU room and then go to work. That is
special.
And I could, like, if something was happening, I could literally just run up there and or I would go eat lunch up there every day, and I would go up there at the end of my shift.
That is kind of nice that you had that ability to, while Uncle Stinky was in the hospiil.
Yes, because there was like several times where he coded and I just like didn't go back to work that day. Like or if my family was visiting, like I could go see my nieces at my lunch break. Like I don't know if I would have kept that job during this time.
Yeah.
If that was not the circumstances.
Yeah.
Which is really lucky. But I also started a new job like in the middle of the worst time of my entire life. And I have a lot of grief for just the fact that my coworkers don't know me prior to this time. And I'm very lucky. Like I have a really great relationship with all of my lab mates and my coworkers. We're very close friends. And I'm so lucky that I had them during this. They let me talk about my grief all the time, and they still do. Like, they know my grandma by name. We always make jokes about like Linda and like Uncle Stinky. And that's such a strong piece of my support system I have.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And I don't think I would be as close to all of them if I wasn't going through that horrific time when I started. Like, and that was a big reason why I started Grief in Your 20s right after. It might have been like a year after Uncle Siki died. I honestly don't remember when I started it. But a big reason why I wanted to start it is because the biggest lesson I learned during grief is that I got so much closer with everybody around me during a time that I was scared I was going to feel so lonely.
Yeah.
And instead, all the people that like will just like my Instagram stories and like, or people that like I see at work every day, but maybe don't talk to about deep things. All of a sudden we were talking about our greatest traumas and like having this really intense connection just because they knew that's what I was going through. And it would be like, oh, how are you doing? And I don't ever stop talking. So I overshare everything. And because I was talking about it, they would talk about it.
Yeah.
And even if it was something that happened to them 10 years ago,
Yeah.
all of a sudden, like, now I feel, and they would feel like we had this very strong bond.
Mm-hmm.
Or people that I went to high school with that I haven't talked to since I was in high school would be like messaging me and talking about their loved one that passed. Still, when I post about Uncle Stinky, like, if I'm having a really bad day, sometimes I'll like tag him so that his friends can see it too.
Mm-hmm.
Be like, can everybody like share the favorite memory you have of him, or just like a random memory? And I'll get things that I would have never heard otherwise. Before. Even like if he hadn't passed, I would have never heard that story. And I get to see like so many different sides to the people you lose, and so many different sides to the people around you that you would have never formed that relationship without grief. In the Anderson Cooper podcast with Stephen Colbert, it's a very popular Stephen Colbert quote. He says that you have to learn to be grateful for the thing that you most wish never happened to you. And that is something that I truly think about every single day. Like when I think about Uncle Stinky and I think about Grandma and I think about Grandpa and Aunt Tammy, like every single day, that is what I'm thinking about, is like learning to have this relationship where I'm grateful that that summer happened to me. And I'll be so honest, I'm nowhere near that. Like nowhere near to the point where I'm grateful it happened. Yeah. But like, I'm grateful that I have this close relationship with my coworkers, and that some of them are like my best friends. And I don't think we would be as close without them. Yeah. Like, I think I am grateful for things that have come as a result of my grief, but I don't think I'm all the way there yet. But I think it's an important goal for me to have instead of like resentment, which is something I really struggled with in early grief.
Yeah. Do you think that that's part of why? So you started the blog, Grief in Your 20s, obviously because you were going through grief in your 20s. But like, do you think that you were like, that was part of your goal, was processing and then figuring out how to like become, like, get to a better place with it, or like a more grateful place with it? Or
I want to say I actually started it because I was in therapy, and my therapist Adam was like, you should write a book. Like, he was like, I was just talking about it, and he was like, I think I have a blog post where I was like, it's titled something like, Nick Saban retired and it ruined my life, or something, because that was a trigger that you wouldn't think would be a trigger. But my Uncle Stinky was a giant Alabama fan. Okay. So I'm a giant Alabama fan. Like, otherwise I would have no emotional tie to that team. Yeah. And Nick Saban retired like a couple months after he passed, I think. It might have been the next year. Again, my memory is trash after. Grief also ruins your memory. Like, that's a real thing. And I was talking about it in therapy, and Adam was like, oh my gosh, you should write a book. And I was like, I'm not going to do that, but maybe I should write a blog, because when Uncle Stinky was sick, I was writing his Caring Bridge page, and I was writing for a long time. It was like daily updates, and then it changed to weekly when he was kind of like he wasn't like declining or improving, and it was before we had done hospice.
Just not a lot to report.
There was just not a lot to report on. And it was really like, the Caring Bridge was really, really therapeutic for me. Okay. Like, writing, and which is interesting because I've never felt like writing was therapeutic for me prior to this. But I felt like I missed it. I had been talking about that in therapy. And so I kind of started that. Like, I also missed the interaction of people, of like people sharing like their own feelings and their own experiences and grief through in the comments of like hearing other people talk about like, oh yes, I also feel all these same things. I remember when like literally the day he passed, we had spent like all day at the hospital, and then they were like, we can't tell you how long it's going to be. Like they had turned down his vent all the way, and he was on morphine, and we had been there all day, and my aunt had sent us home, and then she was going to call us, and she called me back, and like I heard the machines go off when she was on the phone with me, and he like passed while she was on the phone with me. And we went back up and like said our goodbyes and stuff. And then when I went back home, I wrote like in bed that night the like post I put on Caring Bridge when I like wrote that he passed. It was like my kind of my own eulogy to him. And I remember feeling like that night that like if I wasn't doing that, I don't know what I would have been doing. Like I remember just being so numb and angry, and I just felt like I had to do something, and that was the only thing I could do. And I think I needed another outlet like that. And I apparently thought it was still the early 2000s. So I was like, I'm going to do a blog.
No, yeah, I love that. I feel like for people that are listening who are going through grief could take away that it would be good to find a different outlet, like whether that's writing or even this is only top of mind because it's the end of October, and I make our Fill Your Cups reels every month. And I seriously like sob over them. It's so silly. But like I watch them, and they're 30-second clips, or sometimes even as quick as 20 seconds. And I just, and I love making them because I love to like review what we did this month and look at these special moments and whatnot. But if it's an outlet like that, like some kind of, creating a video or writing, or even, I mean, there's probably certain reading that you can do, or like diving into podcasts, something like that, like finding an outlet like that. And then also it sounds like just being honest with your support, because the support that you had at the time was your coworkers, who may not have been the support if it was like a year earlier, or even a year later. Like you might not have gone into that job and been like talking about your grief and all that. But it sounds like just being kind of open with your support system. I am curious what made their support so positive for you. Do you think it was genuinely just because they were open to listening and sharing themselves too? Or like, I guess, what was the best for you whenever you were going through it? Kind of more so for someone listening to this podcast who's not going through grief, but they have someone who is, the best way to be with someone that's grieving.
I think, well, for me specifically, for my coworkers during that time, they were truly strangers when I met them. One of them, I happened to like, we had mutual friends, which was just a coincidence. But otherwise, in truly like 2 months, we went from strangers to best friends. And it, to me, and I'm sure this is because at the time it was my whole life. But I contribute that to the fact that they were so supportive of me during this time. And that,
but okay, sorry, I'm gonna challenge you.
No, go ahead.
What does that mean though? Like when you say they were so supportive, what specifically made you feel supported by them?
I think it's their vulnerability, like the fact that it could have been easy to just been like, oh, I'm so sorry you're going through that, and not also open up and share their own experiences and be so vulnerable themselves. I was so shocked by that. And the fact that like I felt like I knew them so intimately, so quickly was such and that happened with all of my uncle's friends, like people that I only knew because they knew my uncle. I then felt like when they were reaching out to me, they were being so vulnerable with their emotions. And to me, it was kind of like an honor, because I was like, oh, you just know me as the kid that was around on poker nights and stuff. Like, to me, it felt like a really big sign of respect, kind of. And even now, this past August, I try to do something for Uncle Stinky's birthday every year.
We do the same for
John. Last year, I did gift baskets for the ICU nurses.
Oh,
and
cool.
then this year, I bought my whole department coffee and
that's
stuff.
So nice.
And
okay, so you do something nice for other people. We do something for ourselves.
I also go to the zoo. I don't know why I end up going to the zoo every year, but the zoo is the place I go.
Okay.
Before he died, I hadn't gone to the zoo in like 10 years.
Wow.
It just happened. You can't be sad around animals.
That's such a good point.
Yeah.
Yes.
But my coworker, I assume someone told her, but she might have just connected the dots from the time of year. But she texted me and she's like, hey, I know today's going to be really hard for you. Do you have plans tonight? I'm sure you do. But if you don't, like, let's go get dinner or something. Yeah. And I just saw a TikTok about this the other day. Grief TikTok.
Okay.
Can destroy you some days.
Oh, okay.
I can't tell you how many times I've sobbed on my lunch break because I've seen something so sad on TikTok, but also is such a community. Yeah. And really is so helpful. She was saying, like, if you know somebody that has lost somebody recently, put that date in your calendar. And when it comes up again, just text them on that day to acknowledge that it is hard.
When you were saying that person texting you on the anniversary, I was thinking to myself, wow, that would be actually so meaningful if I got a random text from someone on John's birthday or on the anniversary of his death or something like that. And they were saying, just thinking of you or whatever. Like, that's really, really sweet. And I would be like, oh my God, because when you're going through it, you go through the thick of it. And then afterward, it's not the thick of it, but the thin of it is forever.
Yeah.
But for everybody else, they see you going through the thick of it and then it goes away. And so when someone acknowledges that it still is happening, it almost validates that you may be feeling some sort of way about it, whether that's hurt or anger or upset or even just nostalgia.
Yes.
You know, like just whatever you're feeling about it. Because sometimes, like we were talking about in our culture, it's like they die, you get 3 days to mourn, and then you move on.
Yeah.
But realistically, we think about it for so long after that. And so whenever I feel like it's just really nice when other people acknowledge it and acknowledge that you don't necessarily need to be done with this just because everybody says 3 days and done, you know, like it's like I'm acknowledging that you're never going to be done with this. It's really special. Yeah.
And I think I hear stories a lot about how grief like can divide people. I'm so fortunate that was not my experience. I have the most amazing support group of my friends and my family. Like the most meaningful thing ever in my whole life, I think that's ever happened is when Uncle Stinky when we knew we were doing hospice and stuff, I texted one of my best friends in the whole world, Marie, and I just texted her. I was like, I need you to be here. I need you to come. She lives in Manhattan still. And I was like, I really need you to be here. And she's a teacher. So it's like, and this was like start of the school year. I don't remember if her school year had officially started or not yet, or if it was in planning time, but homegirl was there. Aww. Like she was with me the day that he died. Like I was not alone, and it made the world of a difference.
Yeah.
And she got to, like, she's very close with my family, so she got to come and say her goodbyes too, which I know was very important for her. Yeah. But I constantly, like, I don't think I go more than 3 days without thinking about what a difference just her being there made. So that when I got home from the specialty hospital he was at after he died, that I wasn't by myself. Yeah. That just somebody else was in the apartment at least. Yeah. And that when I woke up the next day, I wasn't by myself still. Yeah. It made such a difference. And that I was with somebody who was like one step removed from the situation made such a difference too, because I'm such like a carer that I need to take care of other people. And I had been doing that so much for the 3 months that this had been happening that I needed somebody else to take care of me in that moment. Yeah. And like she was instantly there, no questions asked. Yeah. And that was such like we'll never be able to thank her enough for
Yeah.
that.
I kind of feel like a gist of what you were saying. So for someone listening to the podcast that's like, I don't know how to support my friend or family member or whatever that's going through grief, or someone who is grieving and doesn't really like know what support to ask for. I feel like just in general, it sounds like just having a presence, whether that is the presence of sending a text to acknowledge like this might be a hard day for you, or actually like being present at a specific moment that is really kind of at the climax of the grief or something like that. Just like, I can't tell you how many people, I do think I referenced this in the episode we did before too, but I can't tell you how many people I did not expect to see at John's funeral that came, and I'll never forget it. Like I'll never forget those people. Not that I would like, I hold any resentment or bitterness toward people that didn't go, but it's just like one of those things where I was like, oh my God, you showed up to something I would not have expected you to show up to. I will never forget that. That just will mean a lot. And it kind of sounds similar with your Marie, that she could have not shown up and been like, I'm a teacher. I'm sorry. I really couldn't get any days off. You know that America hates education as much as they hate grief. So she could have said something, and you would have probably, even in the pits of grief, you would have logically been like, yeah, that makes sense. It's crazy that I expected you to just drop everything and come. But the fact that she did makes it stands out in your brain. And that's why you don't go more than 3 days without thinking about it.
I think also kind of like we spoke about, when you're doing this in your 20s for the first time and you've never experienced it before, your friends have probably never experienced, maybe they've never experienced grief themselves, but they've probably also never experienced having to be the best friend or the friend of someone grieving. Like somebody in that TikTok I was just talking about, of like putting that date in your phone, there was somebody in the comments that was like, I don't know how to tell my friends this is the type of support that I need. And I had commented back and replied to her. I was like, I honestly think you should just send them this TikTok and be like, hey, like,
I love this.
Yeah,
That's literally all
like,
you could say.
Like, it doesn't need to be a formal thing.
Yeah.
The people around you that care about you are also wanting to help you and are also probably feeling very lost. And it's not saying it needs to, obviously it doesn't need to be on the person that's grieving, but it's okay for you to also ask for help. Like, and a lot of people, I think I have a lot of pressure. For me, I want to do like the big grand gestures and like be like, oh, what can I do that will make the biggest difference or whatever? And it doesn't need to be that. Sometimes it's just
simpler than that. Yeah.
Sometimes it's just like, hey, can I bring you food? Or like, can you want to like go get drinks together and like rant or something? And do you want to cry for 30 minutes? And then we can move on and pretend that didn't happen. Like, just really small stuff like that. Even further on, like you said, the thick of it is hard, but like for me, the thin of it is harder, I have found, because I am not an angry person. I'm a very dramatic, hyperbolic person. So I rant and rave and stuff, but at my core, I don't experience anger almost ever. And grief has made me an angry person. And that is what I struggled with so much in early grief. And what I talked about in therapy so much was, I don't want this to change me and be an angry person. I like that. It's an emotion I feel uncomfortable with. The more time that passes from the loss, I get more angry. Like, it's more unfair because I experience more things without them. Like, now that my grandpa's passed, our Christmas and our Thanksgiving this year is me and my mom and dad and Aunt Fifi. And 3 years ago, there was 3 other people there. Like, it has literally halved in 3 years. And I'm 26. That's not fair. It's just not fair. And it's angry. And my nieces were babies. And now I have a nephew and another niece that will never know Uncle Stinky.
Yeah.
That's so unfair. And it makes me so angry. And that's like what I was talking about earlier with like feeling grateful for the thing you most wish never happened. This is like what I have to work on is like that feeling of anger and not viewing it as, oh, these people like Faye and Gio will never meet him. Like, and Cece and Freya won't remember him. Like, I can't think of it like that. I need to think of it as, look at these relationships you've made because this happened.
What do you feel like helps the most whenever you start down that anger spiral, I guess?
I think in therapy a lot, and this happened for some reason with my grandpa's loss because he was older and like Uncle Stinky was not supposed to die yet. Like he was 55. That's too young. My grandpa was in his 80s. That's like more quote unquote fair.
Yeah.
Like that's more expected. And so I think I had therapy like 2 or 3 weeks after my grandpa died. And I was telling my therapist about these emotions I was having. And I was saying it as like things that needed to be fixed. And he was like, that's not, you're just talking about grief. Like you're talking about anger you have or sadness you have. You're not angry and you're not sad. You're grieving. I think learning to like recognize when you're experiencing grief and when those emotions can be tied to that grief event and not when they're like independent to another event is really important for me to be like, oh, something triggered this. Have you ever heard of the ball in the box theory?
I think so. It's like, yeah, tell me about it. It changes size as time goes on.
So like the box is always the same and there's a button in the box and the ball is giant. It's the same size as the box when you're first grieving. And so the button is constantly being pressed. Your grief is always triggered. And as your grief, like
as time goes on,
the size of the ball changes, but the button will get pressed still and the reaction to that is always the same. And so it took me a long time to realize when you hit that button, recognizing that button's been hit.
Yeah. And because it's unexpected. And I think with the box analogy, if you picture, it almost reminds me of like the TV screens, you know, there's an Office episode where they're trying to get the little,
what I think of in my head every single time.
Yes. Yeah. So it's like essentially the floating icon on the TV screen, when it hits directly in the corner, that's like the button. And you can't predict when it will because things have to kind of line up perfectly. And when you were talking about the Alabama guy, I don't remember his name. Nick Saban. When you talk, like, it's very possible that at a different time of your life that would not have been a trigger for you. But kind of, it's not just the event, but time from the event, timing of where you are at with other things in life, honestly, probably hormones, all sorts of things kind of perfectly aligned to hit that corner or hit that button. And so it's very unpredictable. And that's why it's so hard to recognize that, oh, I'm being triggered right now. The button is being hit, the corner is being hit, whatever it is, that it's hard to recognize. So you have to like go through it several times before you realize. And even then we're not perfect at identifying when that's happening.
Yeah. There's times where I will be going on about something and I'll be having a breakdown and someone has to stop me and be like, I don't think you're having a breakdown about what you think
you're having a breakdown
about. I'm like, what do you mean?
I think you're actually upset that someone's
like
dead.
The holiday season is always rough for me again because all of a sudden it's half of what it used to be, like number wise, or the 18th of every month is hard. Like, I will literally be so stressed in tears at work over something. And I look at my phone and it's the 18th.
And you're like, it's like, oh, that makes sense.
It's like that book, The Body Keeps the Score. I haven't read it. I would love to post all of this happening to me, but it feels like my body and my brain know before I do, which is very interesting. And that's why everybody needs to go to therapy.
Yeah.
I've been in therapy since 2018, and still I think I've had one session since Uncle Stinky got sick where I have not talked about grief.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I like that analogy a lot. And I think it's really, the first time that I saw that or heard that, I was like, oh, that is so accurate to depict how people feel when they go through grief. And I also think it's helpful for people who are listening or people who know others that are going through grief and they haven't gone through that type of event. It's helpful for them to realize too, like, oh, that makes sense. It's very unpredictable. Because I think sometimes it's very confusing for people that haven't gone through a really significant personal loss. It's really hard for them to necessarily have the empathy that's required to understand the thin of it, we keep calling it, or the just kind of the after, years following, and not realizing that, oh, well, just as much as I couldn't predict that person would have a reaction to that, they couldn't predict that either. Like, you couldn't have guessed that August 18th. I mean, you could have guessed that August 18th was a struggle day or something, but without like really acknowledging it and realizing, oh, it's August 18th. Like, you didn't realize your body and your mind and everything was going to react that way until you put two and two together and you realized, oh, I hit the button.
Yes.
And so neither could anyone else. So I feel like it's also good both ways, because it can give that the person on the outside looking in empathy, but it also gives you, when you're going through that or when you've had a trigger, once you're able to identify the trigger, it can give you empathy toward people who maybe weren't supporting you perfectly in that moment because they didn't know what was going on because you didn't know what was going on.
Yeah, exactly. There's definitely times in early grief, or even like not so much in early grief, but when Uncle Stinky was sick, I remember I would get so frustrated with people that were like so close around me, because I would be like, how do you not understand that like every second is the worst thing that's ever happening to me? But obviously you cannot be treated like glass by the people around you all the time. And I think there was just no convincing me at that time that that is just something I had to learn with hindsight. Looking back on it, I'm like, I was just way too emotional at all times. I was just in the most heightened state of adrenaline all the time. But I think like looking back on it, I definitely am not angry at those people. I don't think I was ever really angry at them. But
I think it's one of those things where it's the whole like you have to take it with a grain of salt kind of thing. Like when someone is going through something really traumatic, you have to. We did an episode on assuming positive intent, and obviously that person's not intending something positive, but that person's also not intending to demonize you or like villainize you or anything like that. It's just that person can't look past what's right in front of them.
Yes.
And so I think that it's one of those things where it's just a good reminder that, I don't know. It's just a good reminder that people are going through things that you do know about and things that you don't know about. And that whenever someone has an intense response to something, very few times does it actually have anything to do with you. Most of the time it has something more to do with them.
I think this is kind of weird saying, but I think one of like the biggest ways you can support someone close to you going through grief is just let them be a little crazy during that time.
Yeah, honestly.
Like when they're going through something really like horrific, just let them do weird things.
Yeah.
Like if they say something to you and you're like, that was
out of pocket.
Yeah, out of pocket, out of character, just let it slide. Like it will very likely never come up again. We're just going through it. And sometimes I probably did some really weird things in that summer that I maybe should apologize for, and I just don't remember.
Yeah.
Grief makes you do really weird shit and say weird things because your literal brain chemistry is off. So off.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so interesting you saying this because I could just be like fuzzing out things about myself at that time, which I do think happens when you're grieving. But I feel like people just grieve so differently. And I know for my mom, for instance, I don't think she'd mind me sharing this, but I felt like it was a lot more like what you were describing about just anger and intensity and feeling really like, how can everybody else not be so freaking upset about this? Because obviously having your son pass like my mom did, I can't even imagine. But for me, I am kind of more of a quiet griever. Like I like to be home alone. Maybe Jared can be next to me and give me a little snuggle or something. But I don't like to, I don't want to like really dwell on it. I like to be able to just kind of like skate past it. Like, yeah, my brother's dead. It's sad. It really is. Moving on.
Yep.
Kind of thing. And then I'm also not like a wallower. Like I don't on his birthday or his day of passing or something like that. I know people in my family, some of them will take the whole day off and I'm like, I'd rather go to work and be distracted.
Yeah.
Or some people will watch his favorite movie and I'm like, I don't really want to sit in my living room and sob. Or if I'm going to do that, I don't want to do it with other people. I want to do it by myself. And so, or again, like just with Jared or Edward or something. So it just feels, it's just like people are just so different, I guess, with their grief. So it can be really hard. But I do think that something that is consistent between people is that you can't really know when it's going to hit. And you have to be able, like as the person grieving, I feel like you have to be comfortable with communicating what you want and need. Because at this stage, I can recognize those things about myself, but when you've said the term early grief a few times, which I don't fully know if that, like what that qualifies to.
I think like technically I've heard it's the first 5 years.
Oh, okay.
Which is, I mean, I'm only 2 years in.
Yeah.
In my brain, it's like the first year is what I reference it to, but like in like
the DSM or whatever.
Yeah, in like official capacity, I think it's 5 years.
Okay. Well, earlier on, I felt like something's wrong with me because I don't want to like constantly talk about it and dwell on it and wallow. And I don't want to necessarily, I wasn't avoiding it, but I was just like, he's gone and it's really upsetting. And I want to feel really upset when I feel upset. And I also want to feel happy about who he was when I'm happy about who he was. And, you know, there's a lot of recurring things coming now with having a niece and feeling really sad about what kind of uncle he could have been, that sort of thing. There's a lot of that comes on every major life event or holiday, like you were talking about, comes on. But I just know earlier on, I felt weird about how I felt compared to other people, I guess. And it was more just that I wanted to grieve privately and other people wanted to grieve not publicly, I won't say, but just like have more acknowledgement of
like
it.
A group setting.
And so I think that even having those people having those differences in grieving, it's just so important for that person to share what it is that they need. So I feel like communication is so important.
Yes. And I think it's really important if you're someone close to someone going through that to just be like, hey, let's have a really frank discussion of what's going to be helpful for you. I think what you were saying, communication is so helpful. Just sitting down with someone and being like, do you want to talk about it? Like, do you want distractions or do you want to sit and really sob or really talk about like that TikTok I was watching? Somebody commented and was like, yeah, please don't text me on the day my mom died. I know she's dead. Like, I don't need somebody to remind me. Which is totally fair, but I feel the complete opposite of that, clearly.
Yeah.
It's just like, I think the best way is just to be like, it's almost like a safe word, being like, real quick, time out, I need to know what you want.
It's kind of unfortunate because we tiptoe around it and we were saying it's very taboo and whatnot, but I think what is most helpful is when you're just like, what do you need from me? Or I need this from you, or this is kind of my preference, or what is your preference? You know, we should just talk about it. It makes it so much easier to just act around, you know? So I don't know. That's just, I guess, my 2 cents. But is there anything specifically that you want to share about grief or for other people that are either have someone going through it. We talked a lot about what to do when someone else is going through it or what to do when you're in it and just kind of how you felt in it and everything. Is there anything specific, like any other takeaways or anything that you would want people to have?
I think like just resources wise, my therapist had me read It's Okay to Not Be Okay by Meg Devine when I was in very early grief. I still have not finished that book. I'm very slowly going through it. Her husband died in an accidental drowning.
Oh, right.
And it is a phenomenal resource. I've bought it for so many people. That's one that if I see somebody close to me has gone through a major loss, I'll buy them that book. I think there's also a workbook for it, but I just like have written, highlighted all through my copy. So that is a really big one. If you're someone who is just interested in kind of the concept of grief, like I'm someone who becomes more comfortable with something by learning about it. Obviously, I've been listening to all these podcasts and stuff. There's a really good author. Her name's Caitlin Dowdy. She's also on YouTube, Ask a Mortician. She has wrote Smoke Gets in Your Eyes. It's a memoir from when she worked in the funeral industry.
Okay.
And then she has a book called From Here to Eternity. And that's about the different death cultures all around the world.
Very fascinating.
Yes, it's so interesting. I read that in college and I hadn't experienced any big grief or loss yet. And I think, honestly, having that knowledge beforehand of how other cultures grieve when I was grieving made a big difference. Because I think if my only experience of grief was with our culture of being very private and hidden about it, I think I would have gone a little bit more crazy because I'm like so open and I need to talk about things. And I mean, my house, like I have what looks like shrines to my loved ones in my house. I have a memory bear and like these little ornaments and stuff.
Yeah.
Notes on my walls from them and all that's, I'm just a very open person. So if you're someone like that, those are very, very good, interesting resources.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Well, unless you have anything else, I am so glad that you came on. I feel like we talked a lot about how people don't talk about this enough. So ultimately just talking about it on the podcast is really exciting to me and something that I hope that people will click on and not shy away from, you know? So if you made it to the end of this episode, we would love to hear what you thought. And if you, just share with us what your story is, what you've gone through, if you have that, or if you have more specific questions about Shelby or me, or about like a friend that's going through something or something like that, we definitely obviously would be open books about it.
Yeah, clearly I have not a single secret in my entire life.
Well, also this is out for public consumption.
Yes.
So intentionally we're talking about this. So hopefully you liked it. If you did, please leave us a rating review. We'd appreciate it. And if you're watching on YouTube, please drop a comment. We love to see what you're commenting. But otherwise, thanks Shelby so much for coming on. Cheers. After you took a drink.
Yeah, that was a horrible time.
Cheers.
Cheers.